Dude, what the hell? I thought at first, bro, this guy's a weirdo. However, the money is excellent, so I'm going to continue. After that, we simply developed a close relationship over time. People would kill for this blessing, yet this idiot just threw it away. Furthermore, the purportedly leaked video of YoungBoy whooping his ass is absurd. This is the actual account of how the barber for a young quit NBA boy made a life-altering mistake by letting his thoughts run wild online. No cap. You'll see why YoungBoy had to cut this guy off entirely by the time I finish telling you this story. This one is going to be crazy, so fasten your seatbelt. Comprehending the world of young boys. Let me first paint you a picture. Roop, one of the most well-known rappers in the game at the moment, is NBA YoungBoy, whose real name is Kentrail. However, beneath all of that achievement lies a young guy who is coping with a significant psychological burden. This shorty has everything most people desire: a wife, children, wealth, and notoriety. Here's the genuine tea though. Loneliness cannot be cured by success. By the age of 25, the young boy had experienced more trauma than most people have in their lifetime. Growing up in Baton Rouge, he had to cope with street politics, losing friends, ongoing court cases, and the stress of providing for his entire family. Sometimes all you want is to feel normal when you're carrying that kind of burden. Do you sense me? Family, that's when it becomes really psychological. The young boy received everything except normal. He is unable to go to the local store, hang out in the same places, or form regular connections without questioning whether those around him are doing so for the right reasons. A desire for genuine human connection is fueled by this kind of seclusion, despite having to pay for it. The streets don't prepare you for loneliness brought on by fame. When you start at the bottom, as YoungBoy did, you believe that success and wealth will take care of all your issues. However, you wind up in this strange bubble where everyone is looking for something from you. And it's harder to create a true personal connection than a devoted industry friend. The more profound psychology of loneliness and celebrity. Allow me to explain what YoungBoy's mind is actually experiencing, because this kind has a way of more famous persons than most people know. You don't just become famous when you get off the streets. You become less able to trust the intentions of others. Every new acquaintance you make may be attempting to take advantage of you, set you up, or approach you inappropriately. Since he was a teenager, the young guy has had to continually guard his back, been shot at, and had individuals he trusted betray him. You become psychologically isolated from everyday human interaction when you are overly vigilant. You begin to examine every interaction, gesture, and relationship by asking yourself, what do they really want from me? For this reason, it was like finding water in the desert for the little lad when he met someone like Nanu, a normal guy who wasn't from his world, wasn't attempting to rap, and wasn't on any street timing. At last, a person who could simply act normally around him, without the additional agendas and politics. Celebrity isolation syndrome is the psychiatric term for what YoungBoy was going through. You begin to yearn for the most fundamental types of connection when fame puts such a barrier between you. An everyday human interaction. He was prepared to pay Nanu merely to hang around because of this. Friendship wasn't something he bought. He was purchasing the sense of normalcy. The barber gets too comfortable and is cut by Nanu. I'm going to meet NBA War, and to be honest, it wasn't what I initially anticipated. Dude, what the hell? I thought at first, bro, this guy's a weirdo. However, the money is excellent, so I'm going to continue since, I have a mouse to feed, and so forth. Subsequently, we just developed a significant bond with one another. This is how YoungBoy got to know Nanu Coots, his barber. This wasn't just any encounter at a barbershop. In YoungBoy's circle, Nanu was already doing hair for a few people. YoungBoy wanted someone he could rely on to visit his location on a regular basis. And word spread that this guy was good with the clippers. It was all business at first. YoungBoy would just call Nanu, pay him, and receive his cut. This is where things become fascinating, though. In contrast to the yes men and street guys who were constantly around him, YoungBoy began to notice that Nanu had a silly, carefree vibe. During the interview that ultimately led to his termination, Nanu said, "At first I was like, bro, this guy's a weirdo. Like, dude, what the hell? But the money's good, so I'm going to still keep going. If I pay you for all of their haircuts, you want to just chill and play Madden all day?" I thought, hell yeah. Really? Sometimes he will have a chef prepare meals for me, and at one point he wanted me to be his assistant. Other times, he and I will spend around 5 hours together, playing video games. Wait, let me explain what actually transpired in this case. Because YoungBoy was attempting to establish a human connection with him, Nanu found him strange, considerate. People assume something is wrong with you when you try to be normal after being treated like a celebrity or being feared. But there you have it, the tragedy of celebrity. Nanu thought that YoungBoy was acting strangely because he was presumably simply attempting to have a typical chat. Perhaps joke about and be himself without the rapper persona. Nanu failed to see that he was seeing YoungBoy attempting to be human rather than cool or amazing. Ironically, Nanu's first impression of YoungBoy as strange was precisely what made him valuable to YoungBoy, because Nanu wasn't treating him like some untouchable celebrity, kissing his ass, or starstrucking him. Even though he had no idea what he was seeing, he was only being honest. From barber to friend. However, that is only the start. What truly demonstrates YoungBoy's attitude is what transpired afterward. YoungBoy began doing more than simply haircuts. After the cut, I asked Nanu what he was doing. When Nanu would say that he had other appointments at his shop, YoungBoy would simply ask, "How many appointments do you have? How much do you charge? If I pay you for all of their haircuts, you'll want to just chill and play Madden all day." Yo, let that sink in for a second. This is MBA, YoungBoy, a multimillionaire who could have anyone around him. It's literally paying his barber just to hang out and play video games. That's not weird. That's lonely. That's a young man trying to buy normally because he can't find it naturally. Nanu claimed that they would spend about 5 hours playing video games while YoungBoy had his chef prepare Nanu's meals. Like normal homies. YoungBoy even asked Nanu to be his assistant at one point, demonstrating how much he valued having someone around who wasn't trying to be on some street timing all the time. The beautiful thing about these sessions was that they gave YoungBoy something that money can't normally buy. The feeling of being a regular young dude with no cameras, no pressure to be on, and no business discussions. Just two people playing video games and trash talking like normal friends. The crazy thing about this whole dynamic is that YoungBoy was essentially creating his own therapy sessions without even realizing it. And those hours of playing 2000 and being goofy were likely some of the most mentally healthy moments of his week. When you're in YoungBoy's position, every relationship becomes complicated. People want something from you. People are afraid of you. People are trying to use you for clout. Or people are walking on eggshells around you. However, with Nanu, at least initially, it was different. Nanu wasn't from his world, wasn't trying to rap, wasn't into any street politics, and was just a regular dude who could provide that normal energy the YoungBoy was feeling. This is where we got to get real about what YoungBoy was going through mentally. Think about it from a psychological perspective. YoungBoy was essentially paying for friendship because genuine friendship became impossible to find in his circle. And let's keep it 100. Sometimes when you're going through heavy stuff, you need goofy people around you just to get your mind off your problems. YoungBoy was dealing with court cases, family drama, industry politics, and all types of stress. Having someone around who could just be silly and play video games was probably therapeutic for him. The psychological weight of fame, especially when you come from the streets, creates this strange paradox. You got everything, but you've got nothing. The fact that YoungBoy was willing to pay for this kind of interaction shows how desperate he was for normalcy. Most people take casual friendships for granted, but when you're at YoungBoy's level, casual anything becomes impossible. Every interaction has weight. Every relationship has implications. Every conversation could end up on the internet. The trust factor. Why Nanu was special. What made Nanu unique? His mind never got a break from high-stakes thinking, trauma, legal stress, family pressure, and industry politics. When YoungBoy's level of paranoia and trust issues are present, Finding someone who wants to cut your hair and maybe play video games is like finding a unicorn. No hidden agendas. No requests for features. No trying to bring their homies around. No asking for money or favors, just pure human interaction. YoungBoy probably felt like he could finally breathe around Nanu. He didn't need to be the tough street rapper, the business mogul, or the family provider. He could just be Kentrell. He could just be Kentrell. It was like a loyalty test, disguised as casual friendship. The interview that changed everything. But this is where it gets crazy. And this is where Nanu fumbled the biggest bag of his life. While YoungBoy was in jail, Nanu was invited to do a podcast interview about what it was like being YoungBoy's personal barber. This guy really thought it was cool to go on the internet and tell all of YoungBoy's business. And in that interview, Nanu said some wild things that he had no business saying. I was like, bro, this guy's a weirdo at first. Because he publicly called YoungBoy a weirdo. Talked about how YoungBoy would pay him simply to hang out. And essentially painted YoungBoy as a needy, lonely man who needed to purchase companionship. Dude, what the hell? But the money's good, so I'm going to keep going because I had, mouse feet and stuff. And then slowly, we just grew a big, relationship with each other. Let me explain why this was so disrespectful. The YoungBoy trusted this man enough to let him into his home, his personal space, and around his family. He paid him well, fed him, and treated him like family. Nanu returned that trust by going on. The comments on that interview were harsh. People were making fun of YoungBoy, calling him pathetic for paying someone to be his friend, and calling him lonely and desperate. But the truth is that YoungBoy was paying for normalcy and discretion, not friendship. What made this even worse was the timing. YoungBoy was in jail, dealing with legal stress, and likely feeling vulnerable when he discovered that his trusted barber was online calling him strange and disclosing his personal information. That kind of betrayal hits different when you're already in a dark place. Nanu's actions were a total breach of the unwritten code. Personal life like that, especially for someone with YoungBoy status, should be kept private. That's not your story to tell on the internet for clout. In the streets, there's an understanding that what happens in someone's house stays in someone's house. Nanu wasn't just violating celebrity privacy. He was also violating basic street ethics. You don't go on podcasts discussing how your homie acts in private, especially when that homie has been providing for you financially. Although YoungBoy was in jail at the time of the interview, the streets had ears everywhere, and YoungBoy undoubtedly heard what his barber had to say about him. Imagine being in jail already, dealing with legal stress, and then discovering that someone you trust is online calling you strange and exposing your personal business. The crazy thing is that Nanu seemed to think what he was saying was harmless. It's probably thinking he was just sharing a cool story about hanging with a famous rapper. However, Nanu completely missed the point. Loyalty is everything in YoungBoy's world. When you come from the streets and make it to that level, the people around you become your family. And family doesn't go on podcasts discussing your personal business, no matter how innocent they think it is. The YoungBoy's response was quick and decisive. After he was released from jail, he got a new barber. There was no drama, no public statements, and no social media posts. He simply cut Nanu off entirely and moved on. Which is how you know he was deeply hurt by the betrayal, because he didn't even waste energy addressing it publicly. This kind of response demonstrates maturity and also how much this situation affected him. YoungBoy could have easily put Nanu on blast, had his people handle it, or made it a whole thing. But instead he quietly removed him from his life and kept it moving. The message was clear to everyone watching. If you betray YoungBoy's trust, you're done. No second chances, no explanations are required. The relationship ended the moment that interview went live, and YoungBoy didn't need to explain why he cut Nanu off. The streets understood, and that was all that mattered. How this changed YoungBoy's approach. But here's what people don't talk about. How this betrayal probably affected YoungBoy's ability to trust people going forward. When someone violates your trust like that, especially during a vulnerable time, it makes you even more guarded than you were. YoungBoy was already dealing with trust issues from his industry experiences and street background. So having someone he genuinely enjoyed being around betray him like that probably reinforced all his worst fears about letting people get close to him. The psychological effects of this kind of betrayal can last for years. It makes you question every relationship, every interaction, and every moment of vulnerability. YoungBoy likely became even more isolated after this, making him even more cautious about who he lets into his personal space. Loyalty in the digital age. This whole situation highlights a bigger problem in today's culture. People don't understand the value of discretion anymore. Everyone wants to be internet famous. Everyone wants their 15 minutes, and they'll sacrifice real relationships for temporary clout. Nanu had access to one of the biggest rappers. The real tragedy is that Nanu probably didn't even realize what he lost until it was too late. He was getting paid well, treated well, and had a genuine relationship with someone who could have changed his life forever. But he threw it all away for a podcast interview that probably garnered him a few thousand views and some temporary attention. In YoungBoy's world, once you're out forever. And in the age of social media, everyone thinks their story is worth telling. But some stories aren't yours to tell. Nanu's experience with YoungBoy was special because it was private, because it was real, and because it was just between them. The moment he made it public, he destroyed lessons from the streets. This story teaches us several important lessons about loyalty, discretion, and understanding your position. First, when someone entrusts you with their personal life, that's not content for your social media or podcast appearances. That's sacred information that you take to the grave. Second, sometimes the biggest blessings come disguised as regular opportunities. Nanu believed he was just cutting hair, but in reality, he was being given access to build a lifelong relationship with someone who could have set him up for life. Third, in the age of social media, one poor decision can ruin your reputation. The psychology of celebrity relationships. YoungBoy was literally willing to pay for normal human interaction because finding it naturally had become impossible. That's not weird. That's sad. When you're in YoungBoy's position, everyone wants something from you. Your barber wants to be your friend so he can get more money. Your friends want to be around you for the lifestyle. Your family needs you for financial support. The internet age has made people forget that lesson. Everyone wants to be a content creator. Everyone wants to go viral. They will sacrifice genuine relationships for short-term internet fame. The saddest part is that the YoungBoy probably thought he had finally found someone who understood the assignment. Someone who could just be normal around him without making it weird or trying to leverage it into something bigger. However, Nanu proved that even the most innocent-seeming people can't be trusted with celebrity access. At the end of the day, this story is about more than just a barber getting fired. Now we represented that normalcy for the YoungBoy. He wasn't trying to rap, wasn't from the streets, and wasn't involved in any drama. The saddest part is that YoungBoy probably genuinely enjoyed having Nanu around. Those casual hangouts and video game sessions were probably some of the most peaceful moments in his chaotic life. But Nanu turned those private moments into public entertainment, and that's unforgivable. The lesson is clear for anyone watching this situation. When someone gives you access to their world, especially someone with YoungBoy status, you protect that access at all costs. You don't go on podcasts talking about their personal business. You don't call them weird for wanting normal human connection. And you remain silent. Nanu had the chance of a lifetime to be the go-to barber and friend of one of the biggest rappers in the game. He could have made that relationship last decades, set himself up for life, and been a part of YoungBoy's inner circle forever. But instead, he chose 15 minutes of internet fame over a lifetime of genuine relationship. The real reason NBA YoungBoy fired his barber fam was not about the haircuts. Rather, it was about trust, respect, and understanding your position. Nanu fumbled the bag and YoungBoy moved on to someone who understood the assignment. In the streets and in the industry, your reputation is everything, and once you lose it, you can never get it back. This whole situation is a perfect example of how the internet age has changed the game. Before, what happened in private remained private, but now everyone has a podcast and a platform. And everyone thinks their story is worth telling. However, some stories aren't yours to tell, and some access isn't meant to be exploited. YoungBoy learned who he could trust. Nanu learned the price of loyalty. The actual lesson here, gang, is to respect your position, protect your blessings, and realize that some opportunities only come once in a lifetime. We learned why, even in the age of social media, discretion is still the better part of valor.